Well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird.
Grown men watch this shit?
A podcast about indie wrestling.
Bird is a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird.
All right, guys. So I'm quite excited to introduce you to a special guest interview that's a little bit different to what we've had before. He is not a pro grappler himself.
From Australia, nonetheless.
Yeah, that's pretty much all we do, right? No, this man is an illustrator, an artist of the wrestling ilk. Quite similar to myself, similar to Jeremey in that vein as well. So I thought it'd be wonderful for us to all have a delightful wrestling art cultural conversation. To not waffle on too much further, I've been a big fan of Brett's work for quite a while. The man behind the incredible branding and graphic design of Riptide Wrestling's posters and such. Anyway, welcome to the show, Mr. Brett Jones. How's it going, sir?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. I'm feeling much better about that smoke blowing on my arse there, because I'm not used to people being, well, yeah, I am. I'm not being humble here. I'm not used to people being like super kind about my stuff. I just do my work in a little bubble of my own self. So when people say nice things, it's sort of dumbfounds me a bit.
I get
Oh,
that.
no worries. Chris is an ace at introductions. He
Yeah.
glowing endorsements of people before they get on the air. They're like, oh, how do I live up to this? But I'm sure you're more than successful, Brett. We actually forgot to introduce the name of the show, even.
Oh well, I was going to do that as our you know that thing where I say we don't lie to our listeners and we sometimes re-edit things. Yeah, I was going to do that deceitful practice.
Screw it. Let's just do it now. Welcome to, and I'm gonna let you say it this time, Chris.
Grown men watch this shit.
Oh man! Thanks, Brett, for being with us.
Lovely.
And very thank you for having me.
Before we got on the air, we were discussing everyone's plans for today's. We're recording this show the day of the pay-per-view Royal Rumble. So some more honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're asking Mr. Brett about his plans, how he approaches the Rumble, and it sounds like he's going to be heading to bed a little bit knackered if he tried to stay up the entire evening.
Yes, yeah. No, I am no good at staying awake into the early hours anymore. I just fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I do a podcast with some friends called Hardest Part of the Ring, and we literally just talk about WWE pay-per-view. Sometimes we do New Japan, but we had this thing. We're not too far apart, but we're not like living in the same area. So we get together for the big four, being the Rumble, Survivor Series, WrestleMania, and SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
And we rotate round each other's houses for each one to watch it together. So that's usually the Monday after, because we don't do the staying up. So we have to stay off social media and avoid all that stuff until we can watch it.
Yeah, Rumble's one of the worst
awful.
ones to try to stay spoiler free for, I find. It just happens to work out well in Australia that most of the time it falls on this public holiday that we were talking about, the Australia Day, which just quietly, we're not supposed to say that anymore. It's a bit of a controversial topic. But
yes, I've been
Australia
reading
Day?
some of that on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
Oh, please educate me. I'm American. I'm at a loss.
Honestly,
Go
pretty good reasoning. Basically, they celebrate the date of invasion of the country. Yeah, they still do that rather than celebrating the day when it actually became a country and the states were sort of all brought together as the Federation, which they still celebrate as Federation Day. But I mean, hey, in my book, that'd probably be a bit less offensive to people. But yeah, we just have a whole lot of people who don't want to change anything regardless of whether it would be nicer for our Indigenous peoples. So yeah, that's the reason, and that's also the reason why we now have the separate day where we do the hottest 100. That radio thing that I was telling you about a little bit earlier, Brett.
Yeah.
That used to be on the Australia Day, but then they moved it. It's a big controversial thing. People are like, I'm never going to listen to the hottest 100 ever again. Now it's just an excuse for a 2-day bender.
Up here in the States, we had, of course, Columbus Day, celebrating the discovery of our country.
Yes.
And over time, that's become, a little bit offensive in retrospect. And we have now changed it to Indigenous Peoples Day to celebrate the indigenous peoples of our country.
I heard there are a lot of angry Italians about that.
I bet.
It's like, that's all we got.
Guy.
You can't take that away.
You found that sweet country we all hate.
Yeah. Oh, history with grown men. Watch this shit.
What a
Excellent.
great chat.
Yeah.
So, Riptide Wrestling, how'd you get involved? Like Chris said, your work is amazing. I took a peek when we heard we were going to have you on the show. So how'd you first get involved with the company? Is it your company, actually, or did they just tap you?
No, they just got in touch on Twitter, I think. So they're very local to me, which is awesome. We've had like the wrestling shows like in Worthing, which is where I'm from, like for donkey's years, but it's like the old school half term for the kids when they're on the holidays wrestling. So there's only a few matches, and obviously it's quite kitsch, it's proper old school like British wrestling. But Riptide is like more of this new school of British independent wrestling, like Progress and stuff like that. So it's for the older audience, and it's much more, what you've had in America for a long time outside of WWE, obviously. So because it was local and because we'd started doing our podcast, we got asked the creator of Riptide, Josh, for an interview. And I wasn't actually at that interview, but literally afterwards, I think it must have been through that connection of seeing us on Twitter, and I was doing our cover art for, and I still do for our podcast. And he'd like seen some of my other stuff and just got in touch, and it just started off as like, I can't even remember what the first job was. It was just some like little bits here and there, and then like each time it's sort of snowballed into more and more. And then because I was doing so much last year, I'm sort of like signed on, as it were, to do all the posters and match graphics and all various other things for the year ahead as well.
Nice. It's great stuff. I mean, it's I in a previous life did a bit of the wrestling poster design, tried to approach it with a bit more of an illustrator kind of a mentality than was currently being done.
Yeah.
But I mean, your stuff is so different and so fresh compared to so much of the, all right, we're going to have a wrestling poster, we've got to have some pic photos of guys flexing, maybe get a bit of barbed wire in there,
Yes.
get some cage mesh in the background, maybe some fire explosions. But yours is just so fresh and cool. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have that approach from the very start?
No, so the initial ones that I did, because I'm a designer by trade as well.
Yep.
So the initial ones I did were like the promo pic, Photoshop, collages.
Yep.
As it were, like, and then on one of them, I got to do some illustration. I think it was for they had a Riptide Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an idea, and so I got to illustrate that. And I wasn't illustrating any wrestlers in particular on that. It was just generic sort of guys, because I think there was, a slow reveal for who was going to be on that one. So they didn't want to give anything away. But then, from then, it's sort of like each time now, Josh has ideas, for what he wants, because the shows all have a theme, which is pretty cool. And so it's like I get to explore in that theme, but he usually chucks me like a bit of a crazy or mad brief. And I usually do tell him like, try not to throw too many wrestlers at me, because, each person I have to draw makes it that much more difficult. but and then he like starts off with a load. And I'm like, okay, that's, let's not go more than that. And then I show him like what I've managed to try and fit it all into one picture. And then he's like, that's awesome. Can we put this person, this person, this person, and this person as well?
I
Yeah,
got
like,
that
like-
vibe when I saw the.
One for Deep Six has like
I was gonna
12
say
people.
the Deep Six one. I'm like, you
Yes.
poor man. Oh gosh.
I love Lyco's parachuting in, by the way. That's
Yeah, it came
amazing.
together amazingly, but it's just like, that would have been a bit of work right there.
I think
it
every
was-
artist has that in their head, like, oh crap, how many people do you want me to draw in this thing? That's- oh crap. Yeah, that's amazing though.
Yeah, it's definitely, and that one was very much the case, because I can't remember how many, but I had to add in Haskins, like both Mark and Vicky Haskins either side of Chuck Mambo, like the center guy.
Yeah.
And then I had to add another person in the helicopter, another person under the helicopter. There was
Yeah.
just like, I was like, how am I going to fit all these people in?
Great choices though. Love the dude grabbing onto the part of the helicopter underneath. Like, oh yeah, I'll just have him hang off of this. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
so
worked,
good.
but it's good fun. It's good fun. Josh,
Yeah.
the best thing about like working with Josh is he really trusts what I do and sort of how I do it. So sometimes he gives me a bit of a brief, and other times he just says, just do whatever. So I get to just come up with something,
That's great.
which is pretty cool.
Well, I like how versatile your style is too. Like comparing like the Blackwater and the other poster we were just discussing. Like it's almost like the art itself is different as well too. So like it's incredible actually. I'm kind of blown away.
Yeah, the Blackwater
I'm
one
marking out over
really.
here.
As soon as
marking out.
I first saw that Blackwater one, I was like kind of exactly what I'm saying about like just being so fresh and different to like anything else going. I was like, holy
Yeah.
shit, this.
Well, I mean, that was, I think, because Josh has been kind in sort of trusting me. I've like, especially when we were doing the initial Photoshop things, and I was like, he tries to do something very different with Riptide, I think, to like the other shows
Yep.
that companies over here, and every part of it, I think he's trying to do something different. And if you've seen the on-demand stuff as well, how they film it is very
man.
different.
Yeah, first time I saw
Yeah.
it had just like an immediate different feel to the rest of the shows. That really cool light that's kind of filtering through, and just great.
Yeah, and they have so many camera guys filming, and that they're like, so there's a lot of editing when they cut that thing together. But so I thought I could try and do something that fits wrestling in general, I guess. Or I could, if I'm doing this, I can do something that I want to do, and if I'm getting the option, at least the first time I produce it, I can do what I want to do and how I think I want it to look, and he can just say no, that's rubbish, and do this. You might as well go all out on the first thing you do, and then if he wants to rein it in or make it more thingy, then so be it. But he hasn't, so I've got to really sort of enjoy doing what I like doing.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, for all of the wrestling poster stuff that I did, for the longest period where I was actually enjoying it, a similar story where I had a mate who was the promoter, and he just gave me a lot of leeway, maybe more leeway than I deserve sometimes with some of the crazy concept I brought back. But that's where the fun's at, right? Like just where you're doing something that both you're having fun doing, and it's sort of pushing you a little bit, in addition to being able to bring a bit of a different dimension to the poster. Because I seriously do think that they're the type of things where people see your posters for Riptide and it gets a complete different audience than is necessarily just going to be what a standard wrestling fair show would appeal to. And I guess you see that a lot in the actual Riptide audience. I mean, do you feel like there's a bit more of a crossover into the casual, I'll bring my mates who don't even like wrestling, or the girlfriends, that kind of thing?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've done the exact same thing with peeps and friends. Like I took like 5 friends that don't watch wrestling at all, you know, they know about it obviously, but you know, they were just up for seeing some. And I think that's the Brighton vibe in general, is people, you know, are up for trying something, you know, because it'll be fun. And I just said, you know, don't worry, you'll have a absolute blast, because anyone who, you know, says, even if they say awful things about wrestling and then, you know, they actually see it live, they're like blown away about how much fun it actually is, and how obscene what the guys and girls are doing, you know, in front of you, like literally, and you're standing right next to the ring, so they're you know, almost falling on you. Like I remember standing at the sides, like literally at the front, and there's like Keith Lee bouncing off the.
You still there, friend?
As he, you know, ropes that are right in front of you, you're like bricking it, because he's a absolute giant beast of a guy, and
Large
he's just
man.
about to fall on top of you. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. We always love when we get to talk to the more casual kind of fans, be it girlfriends or whatever, and just get their sort of recollections of the wrestling that we know and love.
Yeah.
And yeah, similar story with PWG and things like that. And yeah, probably Keith Lee, actually, a great example. But yeah, I wanted to first, in blowing all the smoke up your butt, I love the podcast artwork that you did for the Atom Bomb cover.
Oh yes.
Oh my gosh, incredible! I've got some mad love for Atom Bomb, you know, from the mid-90s nostalgia, and I think you captured it perfectly. I also love the whole halftone kind of thing. Fun stuff.
Yeah. It's to be honest, it was, you know, coming from a design sort of thing, when we was, you know, when you're doing it for yourself as well, it becomes like so much more difficult, I think, when you're trying to, because, you know, everything's open to you and you're like, what do I want this to look like, which is what we were doing for the pod. And like one of the other guys is a designer as well, so you're trying to like make everyone happy. And I was like, just trying to come up with a brand look, and sort of going very monotone. Originally was all just blue, so halftone, you know, is a great way to keep your monotone but giving some interest, so it's not just some line work. But that's progressed further, because now we're doing like the overlay with it. But yeah, it's just nice to, I like doing different things. I'm someone that gets easily distracted, shall we say.
Can relate.
and
Yeah, I
and
might have a similar trait, friend.
yeah, and I think that's why I landed on sort of being a designer and illustrator, because I get to try many different sort of disciplines, but I can sort of take on many different styles. I'm, you know, probably a jack of all trades, so I can sort of, you know, dip my toe in many different things. So I like, you know, this thing about being an illustrator and having a style, sort of like that is easily recognizable and is yours. And I've tried really hard to get that, because I enjoy doing different things. So I try and do that, but at the same time, I still have that itch of, I want to do something that looks a bit different.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, hey, because you'll either get people that are so broad to where their work just looks completely like a different style, almost looks like a complete different artist, or you'll get people that get so pigeonholed into a specific style or even a specific subject matter for that style, because that's what appeals to their whether it's their socials or whatever. And you almost think like, oh my gosh, I would be so sick of doing the art if that was all I did. So it's a fine line, but I think you've sort of broached it well, because you're right. It's a very distinct style, but it can sort of lend itself to a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, very cool. You mentioned as a both designer and illustrator. Tell us a bit about your background. I mean, did you study art and then graphic design, or how did that go?
Well, I mean, I studied art all through sort of school and sixth form, and then I wanted to do architecture at university, But my A levels, which we do over here before uni, I didn't get the points I needed. So then I went on to do an art foundation because a portfolio would do that, which it did. And then I got into uni. I did architecture, which was all right, but it wasn't my path. It was way too much needing to do maths and work out thermal heat values for thermal heat loss and all stuff that I really wasn't interested in.
That
I just
sounds
wanted
like a bunch of fun.
Yeah, I just wanted to be like Frank Gehry doing squiggles, that turn into the Guggenheim in Bilbao or something. Like I wanted to do
I love it.
mental stuff with other people being the brains. So I sort of realized I didn't want to do that in my second year, but I completed it because a degree was good to have. And then from there I went on to I sort of stopped doing any drawing and stuff at that point, and I really wasn't into my art much at all, which is weird because it's something I've always done since I was a kid. And then I was trying to get into filmmaking. So I did little jobs, like I worked at cinema for a bit, and then I moved to London and did some running at a post-production facility in Soho, which I don't even know if I lasted 3 months for, because they treated you like crap. And there was like, if you worked a year as a runner, like just basically taking digitized tapes from one location to another or rolls of film. And so I was like, after a year I could, digitize tapes into the computer system. And I was like, that's not the sort of progression I want to do either.
What a step up.
Yeah. So yeah, then I was not happily, unemployed for ages, and trying to figure out what it was, that I wanted to do. And I literally did a part-time design course, like as a mature student, which was really good because it had so many different disciplines that you can do. So I could illustrate, I could do like design stuff, and I could do punky looking stuff as well, which was cool, and screen printing and all this stuff. So sort of that piqued my interest. And then I sort of just got a job from that, which paid the bills, and it just seemed to fit.
Brett, I was just about to ask when the internet cut out. So how long in full was that part-time degree, and kind of how intensive was it from a graphic design standpoint?
Well, it was, how long was it? You're asking now. I think it was 2 years, but I only did like 1 day a week.
Right.
So because it was, it was sort of like a mature student course. So, people have jobs or whatever else they're going on, and they're trying to learn a new skill, I guess. As for intensive, it wasn't that intensive, but for me, coming at it as a mature student, I put way much more effort into it than I ever had.
It's funny how that works, hey?
Because education really is wasted on the young. While it's not, obviously, but I just think like there's this switch, when you get a bit older, that like you really invest and you think, the more I put into this, the more I'm going to get out of it, which was totally the case.
Yeah, I think there's as well, you can actually see your investment a little bit more rather than, I know at least for myself, when you're just a dumb kid, it's like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing. You actually can't see the real world, dollar amount that's on that degree. So you put a little bit more on it in that end. But did you find while doing it certain avenues of graphic design that you gravitated a bit more towards? Did you find a bit of a reconnection to the illustration stuff you're talking about before?
Yeah, totally. So I actually started to sort of, for me, I tried to put something in every one of my projects when I was doing it. It's like a bit of illustration because I don't know, there was something about design for me that when it has no sort of real life input into it, when it's just digital, it can get a bit cold.
Yeah.
And so even if it's just like you're scanning in bits of paper or you're, scanning in tears or whatever it is, if you start doing stuff, in the real world for me, and then you add it to those bits in the digital world, it just has more depth.
Yeah, that
to
like
me.
hands-on tactile type of an experience.
Yeah, it's sort of the stuff that I enjoy much more myself as well. Like when I see design, I like seeing that real input. Because I did start doing too much just digital and I just didn't like it. So yeah, there was a lot of that. And so I guess as for avenues, yeah, for me, it's always been for me to be as creative as I could be. So I didn't want to be doing corporate brochures or, like catalogs or stuff like that, where I'm just organizing type and, I want to make a mess,
Just
as
like
it
a
were.
soulless Mac monkey.
Oh my god.
I've been there,
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah, I mean, I've done those jobs as well, but luckily the places I've been, that I did work, I've been able to, like, one project, would be like that, but then the other project, you're, sat at a table with ink and paint and you're just making a mess.
Awesome.
You're getting a potato print out and you're printing on bits of paper because you use it. So
Oh man,
I've got a good balance.
that's the dream, I think. Getting messy.
Yes. Yeah.
So you guys are both a little bit. Even though I do T-shirt designs for some wrestling stuff, I'm not as successful as my actual using my artistry. I'm just doing all the digital crap. How did you guys?
Says the man that had like Scott Steiner's most successful T-shirt.
That was like. I photoshopped 2 pictures together. It's like you guys know how easy that is. Like, ridiculous. But how did you guys first start to like value your art? Was that hard for you guys? Like, because it's basically like saying, "Look at this thing I made. This is how much I believe it's worth. You guys have to pay me for that to get it." To me, that whole process seems kind of strange. How do you guys process that? You too, Chris.
It's a tricky thing, isn't it, Brett? I mean, to me at least,
Yeah.
there's a point where, and I don't know if this is just me devaluing my art, but there was a long time where I was like, I can't imagine, someone would actually pay me money for this. And then eventually they start to, and you're like, oh boy, all right then. And then I guess you just have to put a certain amount on it to in some, because I mean the amount of hours that you're putting into an artistic practice is never, you're never really looking at it like, oh, I better be earning so many dollars for every hour that I'm drawing.
Per hour, yeah.
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 So it's more just, something to a little bit justify what you're doing, I guess, as well as to put a certain bit of value onto the work that you're doing. So I guess other people look at it that way as well. But yeah, I mean, what do you think, Brett?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the same. Like, for me, I don't think I undervalue my work, and because I'm what's the imposter syndrome, I think they call it, which most
Yes.
artists have.
Yeah, hell yeah,
know?
dude.
Like,
Someone's going to find me out.
yeah, you see everyone doing this great stuff and you're just like, I'm just doing this, don't worry about me, don't look over here. So like, I've done a few sort of zine fairs and I do everything, all my drawing I do on paper. So I'll do sketches and then I'll do it like ink over a light box and then it'll go into computer.
Yeah.
For colouring and stuff. So I've got like stacks and stacks and stacks of like original ink drawings. And I think I just like put loads, in just that's whatever, low price, thinking no one's going to want any of these.
Yeah.
But some people did buy them. But then when I was at one of them, like one of the other guys doing the stall there, a bit more seasoned, came over and was like, wow, you're selling originals, sort of thing. And I was like, yeah, I've got all these, they're just taking up space, sort of thing. And he's like, well, and they're really cheap, you should be charging more, sort of thing. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Obviously I am undervaluing it, but for me, I've got tons of it and I think no one's going to want it.
I can see that, yeah, completely, because I'm a bit similar where I'll always have some sort of paper version of what I've done, and most of the time it's just to me, a piece of shit little quick drawing or whatever in a sketchbook that I then don't end up scanning in. But yeah, it's funny like how you can think, oh, it's just the shitty sketch, and then the main art is once it's colored and all that. Like, what's this original thing actually worth? And then it's amazing. Sometimes you're like, people actually
it's essentially
dig
uncolored copies of comic books. Like, you know what I mean? It's basically the same thing. Uncolored frames of ink drawings. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I mean that
you guys are inspiring me to get back on some paper, man. I've stepped away. Like once I started doing t-shirt design stuff, and just essentially I have a tablet, which is a digital piece of paper. Like I can throw away everything, and it's always there for me. And I've set one rate for my designs, and I've never changed it. And now I'm thinking maybe that's dumb.
Well, it seems like the topic of conversation is undervaluing your work. So maybe push that up a little bit, Jeremy.
Yeah, definitely.
Indeed.
I'm a bit better
when I say, hey guys, I know I've been charging you this set amount for such a long time, but now I'm increasing it. Would you still continue to work with me? And I'm worried about people are going to say, you know what? No, there's this guy over here that's actually willing to do the same work for free, because people fucking do that online. They're such marks for wrestlers. They want to do a free design. I'm a mark for wrestlers too. I'm not trying to get too, but they just willing to offer their work up for free, and that devalues all of us as a whole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, totally. I was having that conversation with some friends just the other day, and I was just like, going, it's so frustrating, because the thing is, like, for me, doing stuff for wrestling is quite new. I've always loved wrestling, but like it's only because of the Riptide stuff, and I've started to do some t-shirts because of recommendations from like Josh at Riptide.
Yeah.
And they've seen that work, so they want this. So it's new to me, but I'm coming from a place where I know there's not loads of money in wrestling, or there's not over here anyway, especially on the independent scene. So it's like, for me to do some of it, I have to sort of offer up a much lower price than I would my usual jobs, because I just wouldn't be doing it otherwise.
It's true.
To a degree it's okay, because it's stuff that I really enjoy doing, and I can put it on a portfolio, and it can boost the less the work that doesn't impress people as much, because there's like jobs that can have taken a lot of craft and stuff, but it's for a corporate company or something, people just aren't interested. And then you've got like a t-shirt for Aussie Open over here or something, and suddenly people are interested. Like, they think that's cool. So like,
nice name drop.
Yeah, thank you. There's a balance there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I can justify at the moment, but if I was solely doing the wrestling stuff, I couldn't sort of pay the bills with it at all. But also initially it was really difficult to price, because I know how much to charge corporate people, but I don't at all know how much to charge those.
Yeah, wrestlers are guys just trying to make they're plying their trade as much as us, and then they're trying to travel back and forth, and then we're like trying to gouge them for, here's what I charge for a design. That's why I said it's so cheap. So I definitely do the same thing, just undervalue some of the art, just because I'm trying to help people out, even make a product of their own. A t-shirt for a wrestler could make them so much money in the long run.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, like the way you look at wrestling pricing versus the way you look at real world pricing. Because you're exactly right. We all know in our various local wrestling scenes that no matter what, unless you got a worker who's signed to a big company making those big bucks, that they're just grinding it out, and they don't have a heap of money to splash around. So it's really, it's almost like we are working for less because we have more fun doing it because of this weird passion that we have for wrestling. I guess that
and
we're
how
all
much
okay
respect
with that.
we have for the guys.
Yeah.
And we just want to help them make a living, man. Like, they do so much for us. If I could work a little cheaper to help you make some extra bucks, and you're taking these huge bumps for me, I feel like it's an appreciation, to show respect.
Yeah, I think on the other side as well, it's when you come from people that are commissioning work that are not used to commissioning work, and they don't know what illustration or design costs in sort of the professional world of that sort of thing. Like you give them that cost and they're like, holy cow.
Yep, I've been part of a couple of those conversations before.
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like they think you're taking the piss, but you're not. It's like, this is, if I break it down by day or by hour, this is what I usually charge, sort of thing. And and this is how long it takes. Like, this isn't something that's really quick to do. It takes time.
Yeah, that's...
And especially, for t-shirts as well, like, I love them and I don't ever want to put out something that's rubbish, so I will put so much more time in to make sure I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess a higher paying corporate client, if I'm not interested in the work, I'll do it in a lot less time.
Yeah, and they might be saying, this is perfect. It's like, oh, really? Just whip that shit out. Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like
definitely tough to try to
Chris
convince that amount of value of what goes into something, like for people that don't necessarily, know. I mean, I talk to Jeremey about this all the time, and it's just like some people just like, and it's not a bad on them, it's just like they can't see how much actual work goes into even simple things.
Oh,
man. Yeah. If you don't know, you don't know, sort of thing. It's not an insult to them or anything, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one wrestler say to me, she said, I'm not trying to be rude, but it looks like you just threw some text on this picture that I gave you.
And a filter.
Oh my god! I did so much more work than that. You don't even understand. I had to create this font that's right here. This font doesn't exist. I made this. But yeah. She's like, I could have got this done for free, I think. I'm like, you crazy.
And even if you didn't,
I tried to, yeah.
Even if you didn't create the font, you would have probably cycled through like 200 fonts trying to find the perfect font.
Yeah.
This is
She's
fun.
young. I will hold it against her.
This is one of those conversations where it's like I'm so engaged because this is like our real niche, and I'm like, I don't know if this appeals to fucking anybody else, but I'm having
honestly,
a fun time.
I was thinking about it as we chatted, and I think people who are both into wrestling and art, especially who appreciate the three of us, would really engage in this kind of conversation.
Yeah, it's fun because
not to toot our own horns, we're great.
You just talk about wrestling a lot, but it's really fun to sort of talk about the art side of it too. And I guess that's why I was so stoked to have you on, Brett, because like I've gotten a bit into the podcast world of like lowbrow art. There's some pretty great stuff out there. But there's such a great scene of like wrestling art out there now, like just even on Instagram, like it's almost like its own kind of culture, and it's amazing, like the actual quality of stuff that you're seeing, of like wrestling shit, when in another era it just would have been like, fan art type of thing. And I guess there's sort of a mixture between the fan art and that professional level anyway. But yeah, it's like wrestling art is almost like its own total little bubble now. And yeah, I'm happy to be able to discuss it a little bit, on our show. But I guess one of the main things I kind of wanted to broach with you, kind of brought it up a little bit about like that wrestling work compared to like real life work, and because the passion and all that side of things. I mean, do you find with your stuff that you're just doing yourself outside of client work, do you find you'll end up doing a bit more wrestling stuff, or do you find yourself, I probably do a little bit too much wrestling stuff, I need to do just some other stuff outside of the wrestling bubble? Or are you cognizant of that kind of like that branching thing?
Yeah, I totally. I'm definitely in the, I need to do some non-wrestling work for a bit so I can do some more wrestling work. a couple of just a couple of jobs will keep me going for the more fun stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely. If I could do stuff like this full time because there was more money in it, then I would well, I say I would happily just focus on that, but then I'd probably something else would sparkle in the other
You
direction,
start doing
and I'd
carpet
get
art for fun.
I'd get distracted and be like, I want to do this now.
I love it. When did the shirt design stuff really blow up? Because I think even after I actually knew about your stuff, so Mark Davis, obviously, Aussie
Yes.
Opens, Mark Davis, who did a fantastic Dunkzilla Godzilla themed tee for him recently that I thought was bloody fantastic. Davis put you over highly when we chatted to him last. Yeah, I mean, when did that sort of more doing the worker shirts kind of blow up for you? It seems like you've been doing more and more of late.
Yeah, I guess who did I do first? I think I did one for a stable for Riptide, Money versus Everybody, which I don't know if you know of Spike Trivet, Chris Ridgway, and Damon Moser, but that was a sort of t-shirt that was supposed to be. It was very Riptide centric because they're a stable for Riptides. It was to take a sticker that I'd done for Riptide and to turn it into like their thing. So so it was, rather than, I think it was like their hang 10 hang loose hand thing, which then became like a Spike Trivet's little pinky with lots of money around it. So it was like them hijacking Riptide, which sort of all the fans loved because they loved that stable. And then I guess I can't remember who was next, but yeah, it's just been like I get the odds message on Twitter from this person and that person, and now because I've done a few, I've got some great people from like the Riptide crowd that now tag me into because wrestlers often tweet out that they're looking for new designers or new merch people, so I get tagged into stuff that I've not seen, and then I get messages from that. So yeah, I don't know, it's, I guess, in the last 6 months maybe. Yeah, it's a lot of fun though, and it's difficult to be cool and grown up when Mark Davis of Aussie Open, who are just like, from the moment I first saw them at Riptide, just like, these guys are my new favorites.
Isn't he bloody lovely too?
Yeah, they are awesome. And so like, I was a massive fan, and then he gets in touch and I'm like, be a grown up. don't don't be a weirdo fan. You're a grown man. Obviously much older than Mark Davis as well.
That's also weird too. Yeah, it's the same thing when I'm doing wrestling. Oh, I really, really respect this guy, and he's like 10 years younger than me.
Yeah, exactly. If you be really weird, then he won't want to work with you. So yeah, cool. Yeah, no, that'd be great on Messenger. Yeah.
So great. Do you find that the process varies guy to guy in terms of just concept and sort of working out a direction it's going to work for them, or you've by this stage kind of got like a bit of a this is how it works for me, and generally how it goes pretty well for most of the guys?
No, well, I get different things. I get some of the guys have very specific ideas of what they want. So you have to try and sort of navigate that into something. Others, I've got to sketch out a whole bunch of ideas, quick sketches. I could do this, I could do that, chuck them that, and then they'll say which one they want to try or go forward with. So I've done that for a couple, and ended up like loving most of them and saying, oh, we'll probably do a lot of these in the end, but we'll start with these two. which is quite cool. And it's fun. Like I guess it's quite easy when you're given, what they want. You just have to, make it look good. So that's like quite easy. But I do enjoy the more of a free reign approach sometimes as well, because like Cara Noir's the guy that I definitely got a free reign approach with, and he's got such a, I don't know if you know.
He's blowing up right now. Hey,
yeah,
such a unique gimmick.
Yeah, he is awesome, absolutely awesome. And he's because he's got such a unique gimmick, and he's got like this great sort of cultural feel to it, like more classical, the ballet feel, the theater and everything. And he sent me a bit of a mood board of like, great sort
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. A wrestler sent you a mood board for holy shit.
Yeah, I got a Pinterest board essentially of like sort of Euro deco design and stuff, and I'm like, yes, because
this guy's got his shit together.
Wrestling, but I don't like doing black t-shirts. I'm probably like the only wrestling fan that would probably always prefer, a white or a lighter colored t-shirt over a black t-shirt.
Hey, there's a lot of people like that.
Love black t-shirts.
I feel like it's a more blowing up market. Hey, like a bit of people that are kind of over just the black band shirt style wrestling shirt. They want something a little bit more poppy.
Hey.
So
you're describing most of the designs I do.
And they're probably really successful. And because that's what people are after, and I'm just the idiot that's like going, but why don't we do this? I know you're all wanting this, but I want to do something else. And but because of like his stuff, I really wanted to go into that style of design. And
what was the name of the guy?
Cara Noir.
Yeah.
Noir. Okay.
And so it was just like getting to do a bit more like cut and paste of things and making it look this way and that way, and getting like old school sort of modern design in there was really fun.
Yeah. I mean the shirt that was the result of it, I'm guessing came out really really cool, like a sort of more illustrative wings and just the overall. I just love the design. Quite different to the rest of your stuff too, I guess, because it's more like in line with his references and his very unique gimmick feel, right?
Yeah, totally. So I wouldn't mind getting a few more of them. I think I think wrestlers, because of what they do, I think they're all very creatively minded people, so they have like these ideas of what they want, which is great. But I wouldn't mind a few more going, sort of, because I think people just think of maybe illustrators or designers as just the person, the extension of my arm to draw what I think.
Yeah.
But most of my job and most of my time is coming up with an abundance of ideas. It's not like usually the idea part is, takes ages, and then the artworking part is the quick bit.
Yeah.
Which, I wouldn't mind being able to do a bit more of that. Definitely.
It's hard. I mean, you mentioned kind of either the guys coming at you with a very specific thing in mind or being more open-ended. I guess both of those sometimes can be good. If someone's got a very specific idea, it's great because that's what you're doing, and there's going to be a bit less fluffing around. However, a lot of the time, the more open-ended brief are the ones where you can just come up with something that is just really fun. But I mean, they can be dangerous as well, because the open-ended ones are like, all right, well, what about this? And it's like, actually, no, that's 180 degrees away from what I was thinking.
You put too much work in and they totally reject it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no specifics here. We don't want to bury anyone, but broadly speaking, do you have any examples yourself of where you really thought you were onto something great, and then maybe was not quite what they were after?
Oh,
Says no, Chris. Everyone loves everything I do.
Everyone loves all
yeah.
I'm
that
pretty
shit.
tremendous. I'm consistently awesome.
Yeah, batting
No, not at all.
100%.
We accept that as
It's-
well.
Yeah. No, I haven't experienced anyone be honest about whether they're happy with the end product or not. Sometimes I'm not believing of them being happy, but that's probably because I'm not happy
Yeah.
rather than them.
Yeah.
And not that I think, that it's been awful, but it's just like not what as good as I would have hoped, maybe. But yeah, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
I had some guy send me the Linkin Park logo, and he said, "I want you to make this exactly the same, but a little bit different." And I'm like, "There's only so much I could do to keep it the same, but change it slightly." And once I did,
Yeah.
and he liked it, and he's like, "You know what? It kind of looks like it's the exact same, but you just did slight change." That's exactly what you asked for, like literally. And then the girl I was speaking of earlier, she paid for the design and everything. She didn't tell me she didn't like it, and then I reached out to her later, like, "Hey, you want to do another design?" She's like, "You know what? No, I didn't really. I hope you don't mind me being honest, but it looks like I could have got this done for free." I'm like, "Well, okay." So yeah, I try not to go back and ask them how they feel about the art at this point. I don't want to hear the no or the yes either way. I don't
Yeah.
want to...
We're too fragile. We're artists.
Yeah,
Yes.
please don't say anything about my ego. Don't make me feel bad.
My heart I put on the page, you find disgusting? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how about in the graphic design world then? So outside of wrestling, I mean, I guess I was a bit lucky because I would always get, and I still do, probably get too close to my work and attach too much of myself into the work, when even if it's for something else, there needs to be a point of detachment. Whereas one of my my main design school lecturers was bloody brutal with feedback, purposefully so, so that when you're out there in the real world and you meet all of the lovely clients that you ever will meet, I can hear anything from a client most of the time these days, and it has nothing on that lecturer who he would make students cry, but and they would, at the time they thought he was just the biggest piece of shit, but looking back in the benefit of hindsight, I actually really am thankful for him in that way. I mean, did you ever have any sort of more graphic design world clients to where either it's like, oh boy, or like you just kind of step back and be like, hey, this client is just not for me?
Well, yes. I mean, yes. There's definitely been, those jobs where you think you're getting it right and then you're told to start over, or, they're really... I've had ones where, you end up not finishing a job.
They're the most heartbreaking ones to me, the ones where they just never get there.
They are, because, they just need to tell you something, just talk to me and we'll get it so you're happy.
Yeah.
Because that's what I always want. Like, I just want the people, who are paying for the work just to be happy at the end of it. We'll get there. But, I guess often people don't have the same vision, as you have of something in progress. And sometimes when they want to see something early doors, they get the cold feet, or they can't see it, and they suddenly go, oh, I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
And you're like, but you wanted to see it too soon, and I said it's not ready, or whatever it is. But you end up not finishing those jobs because of that. I mean, the worst stuff, or the most, I guess, heartbreaking I've had is like book cover stuff. So at the agency I was with, they did a bunch of book covers, and we'd all sort of in the studio end up like, coming up with designs. So we're sort of in one way competing with each other, as well as then like getting it to the client.
Yeah.
And there'd be stuff that like, I'd end up, and in that and at that time I'd be like working, all hours at home at night as well, trying to get something right, because it wasn't while I was still at work, when it was over my shoulder. So I had to, I didn't want something to not be presented. So, I had a couple where I'd do something and I absolutely loved what I'd done, and it just never even got to the client, let alone, and then I just end up like being told to do something else, which was really like, lame. In fact, in my last agency, there was a lot of, and it didn't just happen to me; it happened to everyone. So it was just their ethos. Whereas, like, if they didn't think you were getting it, they took you off a job and put someone else on.
Oh man!
So which is pretty soul destroying and vicious. But I saw it happening to other people, and I got put onto jobs where I thought other people were doing all right and they were going to get there, but they were taken off it, and I was then put on it. Sort of, and it was just like, either way, it's just like, heartbreaking.
No, I can relate. One of my last in-house positions was the same. You'd sort of have different, the fun jobs. When the fun jobs would come in, everyone would want the fun job, and so then we do the big meeting on it. Everyone would get the brief, and that's like, all right, we'll come back in a week or two, and we'll see what everyone's got to see who is then going to be taking the job, or a couple of the designers who are going to be taking the job from that point. And you can get some stuff where it's like, this is really fun. I feel like it's actually right for the client as well. I'm just really happy with this. And then the manager or whatever who's in charge of the brief is just like, no, and they just see it a different way, and it's just like, I just want to cry sometimes.
You'd get a week or two on it, yeah?
It'd vary.
Surely
some
not.
of them. Well, that's in addition to like the 8 other jobs that you got at the same time.
Are they
rush juggle?
When you guys are working in like a studio like that, like rush jobs typically, like something they want you to bang out really quick?
Yeah, it'd vary.
We always had to come back like you say, you are doing like 8 jobs on your plate at a time. But with ever stuff like that, we'd usually have like a day or 2 max to come back with stuff. It was like constant. You had to work fast.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is even more like difficult, I guess, in that coming up with ideas and then creating visuals from that in that space of time. Like for me, I would love, like, I think with most jobs, if there's more time, brilliant. I don't need that time to do the actual job. I just want, say, that those first few days just for it to percolate in my mind so that those ideas can come forward.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing it straight away, like, I don't ever think they're your best ideas.
Never.
But they're your first ones.
Agreed.
Yeah. You got to let it mull a bit. When you're walking the dog and you're thinking about the job, that's when it sort of gets a bit more clever, I think.
Yeah, you get that light bulb and you go, suddenly, like, when it's been there for a couple of days in your mind, the light bulb goes, and that's what I need to do, which is ideal.
Yeah.
I've had set ideas in place, and that I was like, well, let me just try this one thing that's slightly tweak this, and I'll like it so much better, and the design will go into an entirely different direction, and I'll end up liking it a lot more that way. But yeah, sometimes you just got to mull it over, even just have the page in front of you and dink around with things, and all of a sudden just, this is what I've been missing the entire time.
And have some time away from it too. A lot of the time you can just be too close, but then you have to take a break, get away from it, do some other stuff, and then when you come back at it with fresh eyes, you can, that's where it kind of gets a bit cooler. How about this one, Brett? You mentioned about, like, in some of these agencies about the very short timelines and all that. Obviously, you have a lot more freedom to do stuff how you want with these different illustrative commissions and that. Do you find you work well under pressure, or do you find that when it's up to you and you have that freedom? I don't know about you, but to me, when I have too much freedom, I can be a bit of a fuckabout. So I don't know. How are you with those two things, or is just freedom great?
It's a balance, I guess, isn't it? I time constraints are definitely better because I will get distracted, and all in all, I will probably end up rushing, it under pressure in the end anyway. So even when I've got time,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely that I do work well under pressure. I'm used to. I think from the places I've worked, I'm used to having to get, finish things done in short spaces of time. So I get sort of used to that. And I have this, head down mentality when it gets like that. If I do have time, I will get distracted. I will, be doing my work and I'll be watching, NXT on my computer. And I will
I can't
notice
actually
everything
watch wrestling as the secondary thing. I'll listen to a million podcasts and music and whatever, but at least to me, if wrestling's on, I am completely distracted of whatever it is.
Really?
And yeah, that's where my eyes go.
Yeah. Yep. If I'm busy, then it's on, and I don't really notice what's happened.
Yeah.
A couple of things, but not much. When I'm not so busy and it's on, I've practically watched the whole show, and then it's like that's when the distraction comes in.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny with the like people think this is like bizarre, but to me, when you had those really tight jobs and crazy deadlines, like in-house studio stuff or whatever it might be, it's almost like it becomes a weirdly fun challenge to try to get the thing done within this insane window. And when you do, it feels so bloody good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that. Although for me, it was more like it's done, it's out, relax. That was the feel good
that too.
part.
Like it's off your desk.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
another job ticked off.
Nice. So this has been great, man. I've really enjoyed this talk and the art stuff. I'd love to have you on again sometime down the road. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much. I did, however, want to ask you. We've talked a lot of the art world. We talk a bit about you first getting into the wrestling work, but in terms of the actual wrestling, what do you like? What really does it for you in the world of wrestling today, or old stuff, or what just is like, this is me. This is my happy
You a
place in
deathmatch
wrestling.
guy?
No. So I really appreciate death matches, but I am not. I'm not a blood and gore guy. So
You sound just like Jeremey.
Yep.
yeah. So I'm like I saw one at Progress, their Wembley show.
Yep.
So it's a big show, and was it Jimmy Havoc and Paul Robinson?
Yeah,
my mind is terrible.
I feel that sounds about right. They brought back that feud from forever ago.
There was some, grim light. Afterwards, I was like, that was great, but it was some grim. No, for me, it's like Zack Sabre Jr. I love the technical wrestling.
Same.
I love the submission holds, the transitions, like lots of transitions, this into that. I just love all that stuff.
Yeah,
so
the subtleties.
I never used to be. So I sort of really dipped out a bit in the Attitude Era because it became a lot more striky, like there was lots of, like The Rock throwing the punch, it was all razzle dazzle with the punch,
like
but there was a lot of just lots of like strikes like that, which I didn't love so much because I'm a massive Bret the Hitman Hart fan. That was that was my first, wrestling idol love. And
I still think one of my favorite matches of all time was Bret and Owen at Mania 10. To me, I watched that and I'm just like, that is fantastic. Just a perfect wrestling match.
Yeah, totally. And so that's why Zack Sabre Jr. is my current absolute love. I do appreciate the more striking game these days because I think it's evolved.
I think it's a lot better than it was in the late 90s.
It's totally. I mean, I like the best matches I've seen live now, and actually probably because I saw them live, but the best matches I've experienced were both Speedball Mike Bailey matches.
He's so good.
One was versus Cara Noir at Riptide, and the other was against Walter.
Oh man!
Oh, that's one where Walter brutalized his chest.
Yeah. And like Mike Bailey's with the kicks, and each one of them, especially when you see it live, I think that's also different to that, enjoying that part. But thunders through the guy's chest sort of thing. And then And then Walter, yeah, just straight up killing people with a chop.
Yeah, we love us some Walter. On our last podcast, we were just bloody jerking him off the whole time. So great.
I think you dig two guys up here from Northwest scene, Daniel Makabe and Artemis Spencer. They're both Canadian guys, but they work a lot down here in Washington. So, but they are exactly your cup of tea. Very move oriented a lot of transitions from one hole to another.
Yeah.
So very, very cool.
Yeah, it is awesome to watch.
Another guy from that sort of LA scene that I'm really starting to like the more I see him. Have you seen much of Tyler Bateman?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's very similar in terms of the technical game, but also really cool dynamic strikes as well. Yeah, he's been one of those sort of more recent blow-up PWG guys who I hope he gets a trip over there to the UK scene sometime soon. I think he'd do great if he did.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I mean, you guys are so lucky over there. It's like such a great scene. I mean, there was a lot of talk of the scene being depleted and that, but like there's still so much great stuff, and I feel like Riptide is a perfect example of like there's all this other craziness going on the peripherals, but like Riptide's probably still at the top of their game. I mean, they just feel so fresh and fun.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Josh is he's coming from a very different background, I guess, and he wants, like we said earlier, he wants more than just the wrestling fans to come to their shows.
Yeah.
Like I think, and when they put the shows on, it's they do have everything. So you have. And I mean, I'm not totally experienced in lots of indie wrestling. WWE's been the thing that I've watched always. Then I watched TNA for a while in the AJ Styles, Jay Lethal sort of era, and then they went totally awful. But it was only like
they're actually gotten pretty good recently. We were just talking about how since Don Callis took over, they've had some good quality stuff. But apparently, no one's watching. That's the only issue.
No, I haven't watched. There's too much now, though. That's the problem, isn't there?
100%.
It's just like massive oversaturation. If you're watching Japan and you're watching WWE and you're watching your local stuff, it's just like I have no more time or brain space.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I've only been watching sort of the indie scene. I guess it might be like 2 years now. But yeah, it pretty much like started with Riptide Start, and that was because they got British Strong Style. Because I think I was watching a bit of Progress just before that, and then they got British Strong Style to their second show.
Yep.
And I was like, I have to go. And the weird thing is, I didn't go to their first show. Like, I'm not a drinker, or I'm a very, probably like many wrestling fans, I'm a bit nerdy. I'd sort of, stick at home and watch TV series and stuff like that. And their first show was advertised as like there's live bands, there's like loads of drinking, blah blah. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't really sound fun to me. But then the second show was like British Strong Style, so I was like, I've got to go. Tried to get my friends, but they all couldn't, so I went with the wife, and it was totally not what I was expecting compared to like their first poster of like what they're advertising. It was really chilled, and there was really like such a mixed audience, and I've loved it since then. So yeah, like there's lots of people I've been learning about in the last year on the indie scene, and lots of stuff I've been starting to watch when I have the space.
Yeah, it's such an exciting time. There's so much stuff going on, so much different kind of stuff. It's just really, there's something out there for all sorts. Do you have any like real guilty pleasures when it comes to the wrestling? Because I'll probably, like, I really love the scientific, more technical stuff. I'll watch like UWF from 1984, and it's really obscure shit for just like grappling, wrestling that looks real but has like emotion and everything to it. And I'll happily put my name to that because I love it. Or like Zack Sabre Jr. or Top Flight, New Japan, or All Japan, Noah kind of stuff. But then I have like just the shitty wrestling that just like just gets me in all of the enjoyment kind of places. Like probably the best shitty wrestling that I love is like 90s FMW, like the explosion death matches and Onita and Tanaka and Leatherface and all of that craziness. Mike Awesome. Do you have anything that you're like, oh, I know it's not the best, but I just love it?
I guess. Well, two things. I more definitely more up to date is WWE's Mixed Match Challenge.
Oh,
man.
I do wish they'd let the men and the women wrestle each other within it more rather than this whole rotate out. But it's been so much fun. Like the fun that the wrestlers have and the sort of comedy and the just, letting their personality shine a bit more. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
it is quite refreshing. I watched one just on a whim one day with some mates, and while the majority of it wasn't my cup of tea necessarily, the thing that stood out to me was just how much it looked like the guys were having fun. I'm assuming with all of the big crazy pressure of the TV tapings and all that, and the overproduction that they're used to, this might be one of those moments they can just go out there and pressure's off and just have a bit of silly fun.
Yeah.
I love the silliness in wrestling. Like Carmella and R-Truth combined is so funny. The dance breaks are so dumb, but I love it because it's fucking fun and quirky.
That's exactly where I was going to go next. So, like, the more R-Truth I can see on WWE, the better. Like,
My bad, y'all.
There's such a comedic talent when he had his invisible mate, little Jimmy. Like,
oh yes,
I absolutely loved all that. Comedy in wrestling, I guess, is one of the things. Like, because I know not everybody loves it, but I absolutely really, really enjoy the fun side of those things. My other part, I guess, is the local sort of kids wrestling show. So, like, in Worthing is Premier Promotions. They've been going since like the original World of Sport days.
Man, I remember watching some stuff from theirs back in the day, probably on like Best of Colt Cabana DVD from the early 2000s or something. And I always remember they had the tiny ring, and they were one of the only ones that I saw that was still doing the rounds matches. Because I love World of Sport back in the day, and it was so great. Like Johnny Kidd. I think Johnny Kidd was still just killing it. It was probably a bit long in the tooth by that point, a little bit past his prime, but still, like, it was just so refreshing and different to anything else you'd see. I think like Doug Williams maybe was still there at that point, but yeah, they were great. But I honestly haven't watched any Premier Promotions since like maybe 2004 or something like that. I mean, how have they kind of changed over the years?
They haven't.
Awesome.
Which is why I love it.
Tremendous.
There's a little guy called John Fremantle who it's his thing, and all the people involved, I think, are the same people, setting up the shows. I think there's a lot of wrestlers that have a lot of love for it because when there wasn't a scene, they were there and giving them, jobs, like giving them, somewhere to wrestle. So you still get like, Mark Haskins turning up. Doug Williams was still turning up even after his Progress retirement, but then he was sort of on a retirement tour. And
wrestling,
it's just,
man.
but it's like, it's in a really small show. He comes like the John Fremantle guy at the start of the show, he comes out to the final countdown. Like, it's just so amazingly kitsch. I love it. I absolutely love it. And the kid, you get obviously little kids there, which you don't get at the other shows. And like, they're ripping their tops off and like trying to, flex by the ring. Like, they're just going nuts. Kids just go nuts because it's wrestling and they're seeing it right there. Like that's the one thing you don't get at the more grown up shows, is just seeing the pure sort of glee and like believing in everything that's going on.
Yeah. Did you ever go to like I don't know, whether growing up or whatnot, the camp shows were a big thing for you? Or did you go out to what was it, the beach that you guys have where they'd have the fair and then the wrestling on like 6 million times per day?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
Like it was kind of an institution. I know, like a lot of the wrestlers, like your Colt Cabanas and Chris Heroes and Danielson, would like they'd go over to the UK and then they get these.
It must Chris to know more about your local scene than you.
Yes, totally. That was just WWE back then, or WWF, should I say? Yeah, no, it was probably Butlins.
Yeah, Butlins.
Probably
Yeah, they're the more family shows.
Or,
I talked to a lot of guys about those. So did you ever see any of those, or not so much?
No, I frequented Butlins as a kid because it's the Bognor one's like just down the road from us. But we went for day passes to use all their, fun rides and stuff. But no, I didn't see wrestling until I was an adult. Shameless, really, isn't it?
I don't think I discovered it till I was maybe at the last year of primary school. So that probably would have been 11 or 12 years old when it finally came on TV over here with our WWF superstars towards the end of 1998. Yes. But yeah, before that, I didn't even know it, short of maybe seeing Yokozuna versus bloody Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I remember seeing that completely out of any semblance of like knowing what it was, and I was just like, what in the world is this sport where this giant sumo is wrestling a patriotic American man with a piece of wood?
Yeah, no, I was definitely watching. I think late 80s was when I started seeing it on RTV, which was the guys. There's so much color and so much flamboyance, wasn't it? It was just over the top. It gripped me.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah,
like see these gigantic characters. Like, what's going on here? Yeah, I was so enamored immediately. I'm like,
I don't know what this is, but I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It totally seeped into my consciousness, definitely, because even like, when I draw like those guys, I draw like big, over the top muscly wrestlers.
You got those guys, those veins.
With veins popping everything. Yeah,
so vascular.
That's like totally.
Who's that on the poster for the Blackwater? I think was the guy who's like, his one eye is bugging out. I think I saw like some flash for tattoo work for that particular drawing. Who is that guy?
Oh, that the zombie guy. That was Chuck Mann.
Okay, that.
With the eye.
I love that drawing. I need more wrestling tattoos. I have no idea who that guy is, but I would get that shit tattooed.
Oh, he's like Mr. Riptide, right? Chuck Mambo.
Oh, yeah, he is Mr. Riptide.
That's awesome.
Champion. He's so It's the thing is like,
the name is already amazing.
There's a big beef with beach balls in wrestling, isn't there? Like, it's not a loved thing, but then Chuck Mambo, every time he's at Riptide, loads of beach balls get thrown out and everyone's kicking them all over the place. And like every time they're all flying all over the place and bouncing in the ring, and he's up on the top turnbuckle and then he jumps backwards down, and I think one day he's going to land on one of those and totally screw his ankle.
What a way to go.
He hasn't done it yet, though. It
would be kind of appropriate as an end to his career if that was to happen.
Taken up by a beach ball.
Yeah.
Went out doing what he loves.
But yeah, there's definitely that fun party thing to those shows.
Those are my favorite kind of shows. Like, that's what we have at 321. It's like a good wrestling show, but also just a fucking good time. Everyone's enjoying themselves, laughing, playing along. Like, it's essentially improv, but the crowd's actually playing along too. It's fucking great.
Yeah, totally. And like fully pantomime, which wrestling's always been, Everyone loves booing the heels.
Yep. Giving the heels shit, getting their own internal resentments out because they may have had a bad week at work.
Tell him he's a piece of shit so he knows he's doing his job right. You're a fucking piece of shit. Thanks, dude. I appreciate that.
Lovely. Do you still watch much of the older wrestling? I mean, I see a lot of your stuff as those throwbacks to that sort of 80s nostalgia that you were talking about. Do you watch much of that anymore, or is it all still just coming out of that sort of youth nostalgia that you had from back in the day?
A lot of it is new. I do go back and watch some from time to time, not not often. It's just, like it's like reading books. Like I'm never someone that will go back and read a book a second time because
Yep.
there's just too many books.
Same.
There's too many unread books, and like I have gone back and seen, watched old stuff again, but not as much because there's too much great wrestling to see.
Yeah.
But also, if I'm fair, I love, again, the kitsch and the flat, over the top aspect of the old school stuff. So that's always fun to watch. But actually, when you go back and watch some of it, it wasn't as great as what your childhood mind thought it was.
Well, it's either one way or the other, right? Like, you'll either have certain stuff to where, primarily, like, if I watch any WWF stuff from the Attitude Era, for example, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was trash.
So bad.
But then I'll watch a lot of your 80s WWF stuff, or even some of the early 90s stuff, and I'll just be, like, wowed in a complete different way by, like, how good certain things that the guys do is, and, like, how much of it you don't see it at all today. Like, even a guy like another artwork of yours that I'm going to put over like crazy, this Big Boss Man, I Fought the Law and the Law won piece. So much fun. But like Boss Man,
that one and the Atom Bomb one.
Boss Man's a guy that like you look back at now and you watch his stuff from that time, and there's little things that he did where it's like, holy shit, Boss Man was great. Sergeant Slaughter, another great piece that you had there. And we were just talking in the last episode about how bloody underrated Sergeant Slaughter was.
Yeah,
I think as a kid too, the heels, because they were bad guys, we weren't necessarily, looking at what they were doing, so we didn't realize how actually proficient they were actually being wrestlers.
Yeah,
like, $1 Million Man, he's so smooth and so good. Like his punches are so good. Like as a kid, I didn't realize how awesome he was because I just thought he was a piece of shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, this was someone that was massively over. It was just never was with me. Was Ric Flair, because he was an old guy when I was watching it originally. Like compared to the other guys, he was the old guy. I wasn't interested because he wasn't as bright. He wasn't wearing pink or like neon colors. But we reviewed an old. I'm totally going to fail at what show it was now. I think it might have been a WCW one. But like I never really appreciated him, and then just watching it back, and like everything he did was just like it was on point. Everything. There wasn't a movement that wasn't to his character, to what he was selling in that thing. Like just rubbing the thumb along his trunks, and like his every time in that match, like when he was going from outside the ring to inside, he'd just slowly go up the steps. He wouldn't like jump in. I'm going to use the steps. Like I'm Ric Flair. It was just
100%.
Stuff like that, and that was that sort of not realizing that guy was actually awesome. And yes, he was.
It's just a pleasure to take that stuff in. Another guy similar, almost exactly what you said about Ric Flair, that I never really appreciated back in the day, but then I watch more of him now. Tully Blanchard. Like, every little thing that he does in that ring is for a reason and just exudes being the heat magnet that he was. Even into the stuff with Arn as the Brainbusters in the WWF run. Just such an underrated guy that I completely recommend everyone watch a whole bunch of Tully. And now his daughter is, like, incredible, right? Have you seen much Tessa Blanchard?
Yes. Yeah, I've not seen loads, but obviously... the first Mae Young Classic she was in, wasn't she?
I think so, yeah.
I'm not making that up. My mind is a sieve, so I might be totally making it up. And
maybe she was in the second one.
Remember everything, and they're like, "No, she was never. You're wrong."
For every podcast you are listening to, there's someone in the crowd yelling, "No,
it was this."
Wrong.
we get corrected so often on our podcast through Twitter. It's amazing.
We don't claim to be experts, so no one ever tries to correct us.
I normally will correct myself. I'll know I said something really dumb, and then I'll come back 5 minutes later, and I'm like, guys, I'm an idiot. I screwed up.
But yeah, I do remember seeing her. I'm sure it was in one of those tournaments, and just thought, she was awesome.
Yeah, the stuff that I've seen there was on the Indies awesome and even in TNA at the moment. Impact, sorry. I
saw this awesome clip of Tully and the aforementioned Boss Man, where Tully did one of those suplexes where you bounce him off the top rope.
Yeah, he's finished the springboard.
But he did it to to Boss Man, who was fucking enormous.
Oh yeah.
When he was still like fucking Ray Trailer, and like, wow, this guy's good. And the fact that Boss Man can move like that, also
Boss Man could get up,
hats off
man.
to him.
Like that was one
Yeah,
of
he
the
was like
first
he
things.
popped his hand on the
Could
arm
move.
perfectly. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a lunatic as well.
Yeah.
Certainly, like through the Attitude Era, like watching some of the stuff his characters did, then it was, crazy.
Him dragging Big Show's dead father through a cemetery.
Yeah,
Eating Al Snow's dog.
Oh
Or
gosh.
feeding Al Snow's dog to him. What was it?
Peppy?
Yeah,
Was it?
Pepper.
Pepper. Oh, poor Pepper.
Yeah, it was pepper steak. Remember?
Oh. Oh. All right. Well,
This is awesome.
This has been a really fun chat, guys. Thank you so much. I do kind of want to wind things up a little bit. We've been going a little while here, but I did want to ask you about your average day. I always find this interesting when I'm talking to artists because, so many of us have just little different quirks and things like that. If you have your average day to where it's like, all right, this is a day where I'm going to get to do a bunch of my, your passion stuff or a bit more illustration work. Maybe you're going to get to some worker commissions or something. How was that day, start to finish, looking for you?
well, once I guess actually get to the workstation, I usually.
So do you have a home office or like an actual studio space?
No, I have a home office.
Nice.
I drive my wife to work first in the morning, so I get out of the house and then I get back to the house and then I sit down. Once I've grabbed my coffee and everything else.
Got to get caffeined up.
Yes. And then I usually spend too much time trying to find something to put on in the background.
Oh yeah. I can spend like an
I-
hour just curating what my music is going to be and going down the wormhole of different albums and stuff. So yep, I feel you there.
Yeah. And then and so once I've got that, and I Twitter as well, get my Twitter, my social media out the way, especially with politics at the moment. I spend too much like shaking my head at the world. What news happened today? Oh no, I can't. Then once I'm really stressed,
all nice and
I-
stressed and ready to go.
yeah. Then I'm really bad in that I don't have any regular, like, I wish I did do like 20-minute warm-ups and stuff like that I see illustrators do.
Yeah.
I don't do any of the sort of like proper routine stuff. I literally just I'll if I'm sketching something, I'll probably just, once something's playing, I'll find some good reference for what I need to do, because I'm not, I need reference when I'm drawing something. I can't draw
Same.
a body or a figure in the right way without seeing it,
Agreed.
in front of me.
I did a board game the other day where you had to draw things just off the top of your head in a strict time limit. I tried to draw a horse, and I couldn't even remember what a bloody horse looked like. The person ended up guessing dragon horse ? It's bizarre when you don't have a reference sometimes.
Holy shit, you guys! Walter just retweeted me.
Ooh.
I posted a picture of him from Access or whatever with him and Carmella, and I put this
I
picture
saw
is
that.
fantastic. These two people do the same career, and he responded with it. I'm not a dancer. That's amazing.
Maybe he remembers you from the gift.
No, my face is not on my Twitter.
All right, let's get back to it. What's next?
I apologize.
You're right.
That's all right. So yeah, once I got the ref, then I will literally I will pencil out what I'm doing, and then I will go straight into inks. I'm quite quick working once I get once I know what I'm doing. So yeah, then I will, depending on what, I will probably do a few drawings in the day, but I will definitely get up at 11, think, oh, I'm getting hungry, make a cup of tea, I'll have a snack, then I'll have a biscuit, and I'm right by my kitchen, which is terrible. So then I'll do another hour, then it's 12, and I'm like, oh, it's getting to lunch now. So then I'll go make some lunch, and then I'll sit down, and then I will get back onto my drawing, and then 4 o'clock probably get a bit thirsty for another cup of tea. There's a lot of procrastinating and then a sketching in between. But yeah, but I will. The thing with the way I work is I don't like to spend I don't like to rush work out, but I don't enjoy spending ages on one thing.
Yeah.
So, and because I'm quite quick, I will do the pencils, I'll be happy with it. I'll ink it straight into the computer, get it colored, and it's done. Then I'm on to the next thing. I feel that I get that buzz from when it's done, when I've got that piece done. So I probably, I could either spend a day on one piece or do, 2 or 3, or I might just sketch stuff out and then ink it the next day.
Yeah. Now, are you a guy like myself where you sometimes don't know when to stop, and you can keep going on it, and it's hard.
Yeah, it is. I managed to get away with that because I have to then go out and pick my wife up from work.
Yeah.
And then I'm usually the one making dinner, so there's life things that force me to stop. But there are jobs and things, and when I have no time, I will get back to work, and sometimes I will continue working until 2 or 3 in the morning, and it is easy to do when you're at home because it doesn't feel like the nightmare it was when you were working in agency.
Yeah, and it's like, why am I still in the office this late at night? This is terrible. Yep.
Yeah, but because you're at home and you've got your home comforts, you can, as I say, make yourself a cup of tea and have something playing on the background. You can go for hours into the night.
And when you feel like you're enjoying yourself with it too, like sometimes you're just like, oh, this is actually fun in a weird way. I mean, I guess you'd hope it would be some sort of fun with the amount of time that you spend doing it.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, I really enjoy the sketching and the inking process.
Yeah.
The colouring, not so much. The colouring part, I don't hate it, but I prefer it's finished part. But yeah, just the sitting with a pencil in my hand and using my hands like that, that's what I really enjoy.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've got a lot of sketches. We have way more fun sketches, so I've got heaps and heaps of sketches with the intention of colouring them at some point. I just have to come back to them. Got stuff from like years ago that I just never got around to colouring.
Yeah, I've got those same stacks.
This has been great, man. Well, thank you again so much. Really enjoyed this chat. And I mean, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Or if we do have, everyone make sure to most definitely check this gentleman out on the Instagram. We've been talking quite at length about the great content on there. Make sure to check out at EWF81 for Mr. Brett Jones. And what else would you like to plug, sir?
Oh, I mean,
you want the opportunity, you can just plug things that you like, that you
cool
want people
shit
to check
is
out.
also good. We like people find a great 80s television show. If you want to plug that, go.
Yeah, man.
Television show. Oh, I watch so much. I watch so much embarrassing stuff. Like I'll watch like Castle. Like I don't know if you know of that.
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion, like crime writing, police thing. I watch so much stuff like that.
When you said The Castle, I thought you were referring to the iconic 90s Australian film, The Castle.
No, I'm
if
sorry.
you don't know what that is, please go on YouTube and at the very least check out the trailer.
That's Chris's plug. Check out
The Castle. That's my cool shit for the day, everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll plug if anyone isn't, totally tired of listening to blokes talk about wrestling, there's Hardest Part of the Ring, which they can check out. And yeah, I'm watching Tin Star at the moment. Do you guys know that program?
I have no idea what that is.
Well, it's on Now TV, which I guess is Sky. It might be Sky Atlantic, so it might be on HBO or something like that. Oh, yeah. It's Tim Roth of
I love
Fiction.
Tim Roth.
Yeah, and he's like a sheriff in some Canada town, but he's like Tim Roth is amazing to watch.
Wait, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, and he is just a total lunatic. and everything in this show is really quite serious and real drama. But he is just like going at it of like really funny. Like he's really funny. It's not sort of totally intentional. It fits his character. It doesn't fit out, but it's just like his character's living in a different world to everyone else in that awful place where shit's happening.
That's awesome.
That
That
sounds
sounds
incredible.
great.
Yeah, I'm actually definitely going to check that out. I really hope that's on HBO now. I'm going to have a little bit of a look-see.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Two
Great.
series, so yeah, there's not too much to get through.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I'll leave it at that.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you again. Lots of fun. Yeah, I'd love to catch up with you again down the road sometime, man. Also want to give thanks to our show platform, the lovely people at Social Suplex, who I just happened to forget completely to plug last episode.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I just didn't even do that. It wasn't like they messaged us or anything, so we're not in that kind of trouble. But I did feel like a bit of a piece of shit.
We're getting heat with the boss.
Yeah. Oh, just after Josh said such lovely things about us on the last episode we had him on.
Oh, goodness.
But anyway, I want to properly thank the Social Suplex Podcast Network, give shout-outs to One Nation Radio, Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, the Outsiders Edge Wrestling Show, as well as the Keeping It Strong Style New Japan podcast with other Jeremey and our boy, the young boy Josh Smith. All of that stuff at socialsuplex.com. You can check me out at the Chris Things on the Instagram. Hopefully have some more fun lowbrow wrestling art shit coming at you in the near future. Chris Things on the Twitter as well. Where can we find you, Mr. Jeremey?
I am at Jaims Vanderbeek on both Twitter and Instagram. It's JAIMS Vanderbeek.
Lovely. And if any workers out there would like some rad shirts, look, you got two of the best right now in your earbuds between Brett and Jeremey. So no matter what style you're like, whether it's a bit more illustrative, whether it's a bit more funny and punny, we've
And you'll
got
get
you
more
covered.
value for your dollar with Mr. Brett over here.
Lovely. Well, yeah, I hope everyone's enjoyed this kind of bit of a peek into a little bit of something different today. So we'll
One
see.
last thing before we all go out of here.
Go on.
Do Royal Rumble predictions.
I
Who's going
was
to win the men's?
I was watching the takeover with my buddy Malin last night, and we had this exact conversation. So normally I wouldn't have anything for you, but I do today because we just had this chat. I always like the underdogs. I like that surprise story who actually would be really good to go on and win it, who you may not think of to start with. So for the men's, I'm going to put out there a bit of a surprise here, but I think Mustafa Ali. I think he would be perfect to go on and face Mr. Danielson for the SmackDown strap at the big show. I think that'd be a great story. I mean, he's even got some pinfall victories over him in some tag matches, so I don't know. I think I'd personally enjoy that. But I think the obvious one's probably more like a Seth Rollins, as much as I don't want to see that. What do you guys think?
Brett, go ahead.
So yeah, I should have already thought about this because we're watching it tomorrow, and I know we're going to do predictions tomorrow. But I was like, I'll think about it at the moment. And I know I've predicted people that like end up being in a previous match, but I think The Miz. I'm gonna go with.
I was leaning that way, honestly. It was.
I love The Miz.
I could see him being champion again. Like his work in the last couple of years have been some of the best stuff he's done on both the mic and in ring.
Yeah.
I was leaning. I know this is crazy out of the blue, but I was thinking Andrade. I think they've always wanted to have a Spanish guy or a Mexican guy who was like their top guy, and I heard they were pairing him with Rey Mysterio maybe in the future.
Yeah.
That's rumored,
well, those matches
so
they've had on SmackDown the last couple of weeks have been real good. So, yeah.
So yeah, if they want like some really high work rate match at WrestleMania, I think Andrade would.
So
be
like
a great
turning Andrade face in the process of this. Interesting.
Ooh, would that work?
Oh.
If he's paired with Ray, I think Ray could get him over. Like that, those two. as a unit. And I heard there was also rumors with Sin Cara. I don't know about that, but that's just speculating on rumors and innuendo.
Rumors and innuendo. Nice.
All right, for the ladies.
For the ladies. Oh, I have to go first. Shit.
Keep it in order, man.
Shit. I haven't given this one any thought. Not as prepared here. So who are the women's champions? We got Ronda and has Asuka still got the SmackDown one?
Asuka. Yeah.
So it's probably going to be Becky, right?
That's like the most logical scenario.
And then like they somehow get into, if they're still doing the three-way idea for the main event with Becky and Charlotte and Ronda, I guess. That'd probably be the way
I was thinking Alexa because she's returning from injury, and for some reason they love having that girl in the front of the camera. I'm not a hugest fan of Alexa Bliss, but I can see them going that way.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Becky Lynch is sort of my immediate thought, but yeah, Alexa Bliss is probably a good shout because she's certainly, I guess, one of their safer pair of hands for, you know, the amount of mic time that a champ would get.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
nice.
A potential champ.
All right, well, this will be fun because people will have definitely already watched Rumble by the time they listen to this show. And they'll be able to say, oh, you guys were bloody dickheads and completely out to lunch.
They weren't even in that Rumble.
Yeah. Somehow R-Truth won the women's Rumble. All right, man.
Oh, great.
Thanks,
Lots
Brad.
of
Appreciate
fun.
it, man. That was really awesome.
Thanks again,
thank
dude.
you, guys. You've been super kind.
Oh, thank you.
No
No problem, man. Love to have you on again in the future. All right. Well, thanks
totally.
again, everybody. And
There's 50 people.
yeah, have a good time. See you later.
Well, the bird is